Well, how do I? Wow, great start. uh, uh, hello, my dear hatchlings, and welcome back. One of my cats just went by. Boop-yo. Hi. And as per usual, we wait everything between 2 to 5 minutes until we start reading, in case anybody wanna join and listen. Oh, hello, Soy. Welcome back. I couldn't see you message in like the chat, but I could see it on the screen in my program. It just said hello, and I'm like, ah, yes, this program is really glitchy. Gotta love it. Eh? At least my program is showing that you actually said hi. Because I wouldn't lie. Well, I wouldn't dream of wanting to miss anybody saying anything in my chat, you know. This dragon lady does not want to miss anything you guys say. Yeah, I have eaten some delicious food and watched some anime. It was quite nice. And hopefully I'm not gonna get anything that bang on my door since it's Friday. Well, not door, a window. I have sometimes brutes that suddenly just slam on the window. I had like a kebab pizza, basically meat on pizza. Really tasty. But I literally had to take my time eating it because it was a little bit bigger than I remember. It's one of those like store-bought pizzas because they usually have a little bit less fat than the one you buy in a restaurant. So yeah, but it was tasty. Well, I think we have waited long enough. Okay, let's see here. Oh yeah, and in advance, since I just well, it's been a while since I ate. So in case I just have to run to the bathroom by saying BRB, I just need to run to the bathroom. We don't need to say any sorries or excuses or anything. You never excuse nature's call. Well, you don't need to apologize for it, that's what I meant, you know. Also, I just realized it's one little bit. Ah. Ah. Well, obviously, I'm not gonna explain what I'm gonna do. You know, that's a little bit TMI, you know. So no, I am not gonna explain. All I'm gonna say, if I need to go to the bathroom, I'm just gonna say BRB, you know. This thing is something I feel like, well, to be fair, maybe that's kind of a normal thing. I'm still a new streamer, but I feel like it's kind of normal for like streamers to snack on something here and there in stream or drink something or actually go to the bathroom because in the end, believe it or not, streamers are also human. Or well, human-ish, you know. I'm part dragon, you know. Well, technically I'm a dragon that are in human form because let me tell you, they don't make computers in dragon size. And if I were, you know, my full true form, my little claw would not even be able to press any of them. They would be very small, but yeah. Anyhow, let's start here with chapter 16. So make yourself cozy or drink something. Well, I think it's getting cold where you are, so maybe drink something nice. Anyhow, chapter 16. Dr. Seward's diary continue. It was just a quarter before 12 o'clock when we got into the churchyard over the low wall. Yeah, it can be cold. I like autumn. Late summer to early fall is my favorite. Not too warm, not too cold. The night was dark, with occasional gleams of moonlight between the dents of the heavy clouds that skirted across the sky. We all kept somewhat close together with Han Helsing. Han Helsing. Okay, I'm easily amused, it seems. Han Helsing. I'm sorry. I think it was something in the pizza. Here I'm trying to be all serious. I'm gonna start reading. I'm laughing so much that I have to cry, like dry my tears. Okay, let's get the English back on track, shall we? Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot to say, I always forget saying this in the beginning of my streams. By the way, for people that are interested in my community, go to my About page and there you can find my Discord link to my community. Enjoy. I still need to somehow put that in a bot, so they just put it in the chat. Same with something about bots, but that's okay. Anyhow, let's continue. With Van Helsing slightly in front as he led away. Not held. Oh, goodness. When we had come close to the tomb, I looked well at Arthur, for I feared that the proximity to the place laden with so sorrowful a memory would upset him, but he bore himself well. I took it that the very mystery of the proceedings was in some way counteractive to his grief. The professor unlocked the door, and seeing a natural hesitation among us for various reasons, solved the difficulty by entering first himself. The rest of us followed, and he closed the door. He then lit a dark lantern and pointed to the coffin. Arthur stepped forward hesitantly. Van Helsing said to me, You were with me here yesterday. Was the body of Miss Lucy in the coffin? It was. The professor turned to the rest, saying, You hear, and yet there is no one who does not believe with me. He took his screwdriver and again took the lid off the coffin. Arthur looked on, very pale but silent. When the lid was removed, he stepped forward. He evidently did not know that there was a leaded coffin, or at any rate had not thought of it. When he saw the rent in the lead, the blood rushed to his face for an instant, but as quickly fell away again, so that he remained of a ghastly whiteness. He was still silent when Helsing forced back the leaded flang, and we all looked in and recoiled. The coffin was empty. For several minutes no one spoke a word. The silence was broken by Quincy Morris. Professor, I answered for you. Your words is all I want. I wouldn't ask such a thing ordinarily. I would not dishonor you as to imply a doubt, but this is a mystery that goes beyond any honor or dishonor. Is this your doing? Ah, yes, of course, blame the professor, yeah. I swear to you by all that I hold sacred that I have not removed or touched her. What happened was this. 2 nights ago, my friend Seward and I came here, with a good purpose, believe me. I opened the coffin, which was when was then sealed up, and we found it now empty. We then waited and saw something white come through the trees. The next day we come here in daytime, and she was laying there. Did she not, friend John? Yes. That night we were just in time. One more so small child was missing, and we found it, thank God, unharmed amongst the graves. Yesterday I came here before sundown, for at sundown down the undead can move. I waited here all night till the sun rose, but I saw nothing. It was most probable, and it was because I had laid over the damps of those I had laid over the clams of those door garlic, which the undead cannot bear, and another thing which they shun. Last night there were no exodius, so tonight before the sundown I took away my garlic and the other things, and so it is we find this coffin empty. But bear with me, so far there's much that is strange. Wait you with me outside, unseen and unheard, the things most stranger are yet to be. So here he shut the dark slide of his lantern. Now to the outside. He opened the door and we filed out. He comes last, locking the door behind him. Oh, but it seems fresh and pure in the night air after the terror of the vault. How sweet it was to see the clouds race by, and passing gleams of the moonlight between the shrouding clouds across the passing. Like the gladness and the sorrow of a man's life, how sweet it was to breathe the fresh air that had not taint, that had no taint of the dead and decay. How humanizing to see the red light of the sky beyond the hill, and to hear far away the muffling roar that marks the life of a great city. Each in his own way was solemn and overcome. Arthur was silent, and was, I could see, striving to grasp the purpose and the inner meaning of the mystery. I was myself tolerably patient, and half inclined again to throw aside the doubt and to accept Van Helsing's conclusions. Quincy Morris was phlegmatic in a way of a man who accepts all things, and accepts them in the spirit of cool bravery, with hazard of all he has to stake. Not being able to smoke, he cut himself a good-sized pug of tobacco and began to chew. As to Van Helsing, he was employed in a definite way. First, he took from his bag a mass what looks like thin wafer-like biscuits, which was carefully rolled up in a white napkin. Next, he took up a double handful of some whitish stuff, like dough or puddy. He crumbled the wafer up fine and worked it into the mass. Between his hand. This he then took and rolled into fine strips, began to lay them into the crevice between the door and its setting in the tomb. It was somewhat puzzled at this, and began and being close, asking him what it was and he was doing. Arthur and Quincy drew near also, as they were too were curious. He answered, I am closing the tomb so that the undead may not enter. And is that stuff you have there going to do it? It is. What is that which you are using? This time the question was by Arthur. Van Helsing reverently uh, reverently lifted his hat as to answer. The host, I brought it from Amsterdam. I have an indulgence. Indulgence, yeah, close enough. It was an answer that applied the most skeptical of us, and we felt individually that it was the presence of such earnest purpose as the professor a purpose which could douse use the to him most sacred of things. It was impossible to distrust in this excuse me. Sounds like my tongue decided to knot itself. Okay. It was impossible to distrust. In respect silence we took the places assigned to us, close around the tomb, but hidden from the sight of anyone approaching. I pitied the others, especially Arthur. I had myself been apprenticed by my former visits to this watching horror, and yet I, who had up to an hour ago repudiated the proofs, felt my heart sink within me. Never did the tombs look so ghastly white. Never did cypress or yan or juniper so seem the embodiment of funeral gloom. Never did a tree or grass wave or rustle so ominously. Never did bog creak so mysteriously, and never did the faraway howling of dogs send such a woeful presage through the night. There was a long spell of silence, big, aching void, and then from the professor a keen s. He pointed far down the avenue of joy. How in the fluffing do you spell that? Why? Like it's a Y as in like a yes, and then a A as in Eric, and a W, and then a S. How do you say that? Jones, J. Oh well. Let's just say avenue of trees. We saw a white figure advance, a dim white figure which held something dark at its breast. The figure stopped, and at the moment a ray of moonlight fell upon the masses of no, it's instead of the A, it's a A as in Eric, like the A. It sounds like a A as in like apple, but anyhow. Let's see here. The moment a ray of moonlight fell upon the masses of driving clouds, it showed in startling prominence a dark-haired woman dressed in the cemetery of the grave. We could not see the face, for it was bent down over what we saw to be a fair-haired child. There was a pause and a sharp little cry such as a child gives in his sleep, or a dog as it lies before the fire and dream. We were starting forward, but the professor, a warning hand, seen by us as he stood behind a yew tree, kept us back, and then, as we looked, the white figure moved forward again. It was not near enough for us to see clearly, and the moonlight still held. My own heart grew cold as ice, and I could hear the gasp of Arthur as we recognized the feature of Lucy Westenra. Lucy Westenra, but yet how changed! The sweetness had turned to adamantite, heartless cruelty, and the purity to voluptuous wantonness. Van Helsing stepped out, and, obedient to his gesture, we all advanced too. The four of us ranged in line before the door of the tomb. Van Helsing raised his lantern and drew the line. By the concentrated lights that fell on Lucy's face, we could see the lips were crimson with fresh blood, and the stream that trickled over her chin and stained the purity of her lawn dead robe. We shuddered in horror. Or maybe I should have read that in a very, creepy voice. Like this. We could see that the lips were crimson with fresh blood, and that the stream had trickled over her chin and stained the purity of her lawn dead robe. Maybe that sounds better. We shuddered in horror, and I could see by the tremulous light that even Van Helsing's iron nerve had failed. Otto was next to me, and if I had not seized his arm and held him up, he would have fallen. When Lucy, I called the thing that was before us Lucy, because it bore her shape, saw us, she drew back in an angry snarl, such as a cat given when taken unawares. Then her eyes ranged over us, Lucy's eyes in the form and colors, but Lucy's eyes unclean and full of hellfire, instead of the pure, gentle orbs we knew. At the moment, the resentment of my love passed into hate and loathing. Had she then to be killed, I could have done it with savage delight. As she looked, her eyes blazed with unholy light. The face became rich with a voluptuous smile. Oh God! How it made me shudder to see it. With a careless motion, she flung to the ground, callous as a devil, the child that was up to now she had clutched strenuously to her breast, growling over it as a dog growls over a bone. The child gave a sharp cry and lay there moaning. There was a cold bloodness in the act which wrung a groan from Arthur. When she advanced to him with outstretched arms and a wanton smile, he fell back and hid his face in his hand. She still advanced, however, with a languorous, voluptuous grace, said, "Come to me, Arthur. Leave these others and come with me. My arms are hungry for you. Come. We can rest together. Come, my husband, come." There was something diabolically sweet in her tone, something of the tinkling of glass when struck. which rang through the brains even of us who heard the words addressed to another. For Arthur, he seemed under a spell, moving his hand from his face. He opened wide his arms. She was leaping for them when Van Helsing sprang forward and held between them his little golden crucifix. She recoiled from it, and with a sudden distorted face full of rage, dashed past him as if to enter the tomb. When within a foot or two of the door, however, she stopped, as if arrested by some irresistible force. Then she turned, and her face was shown in the clear burst of moonlight, and by the lamp, which had now no quiver from Van Helsing's nerves. Never did I see such baffled malice on a face, and never, I trust, shall such ever be seen again by mortal eyes. The beautiful color became livid, the eyes seemed to throw out sparks of hellfire, the brows were wrinkled, as though the folds of flesh were coils of Medusa's snake, and the lovely blood-stained mouth grew to an open square, as in the passion marks of the Greeks and Japanese. If ever a face meant death, if looks could kill, we saw it at that moment. And so, for full half a minute, which seemed an eternity, she remains between the lifted crucifix and the sacred closing of her means of entry. Van Helsing broke the silence and asked Arthur, "Answer me, oh my friend. Am I to proceed in my work?" "Do as you will, friend, do as you will. There can be no horror like this ever any more." And he groaned in spirit. Quincy and I simultaneously moved forward him and took his arm. We could hear the click of the closing lantern as Van Helsing held it down. Coming closer to the tomb, he began to remove the chinks, some of the sacred emblems which he had placed there. We all looked on in horrified amazement as we saw, when he stood back, the woman with a corporeal body as real as that moment as our own, pass through the inestic where the scarce a knife blade could have gone. We all felt a glad sense of relief when we saw the professor calmly restore the strings of putty to the edge of the door. When it was done, he lifted the child and said, "Come now, my friends. We can do no more till tomorrow. There is a funeral at noon, so we shall all come before long after that. The friends of the dead will all be gone by 2, and when the sexton locks the gate, we shall remain. Then there is more to do, but not like this of tonight. As for this little one, he is not much harm, and by tomorrow night he shall be well. We shall leave him where the police will find him as one on the other night, and then to home." Coming close to Arthur, he said, "My friend Arthur, you have had a sore trial, but after, when you look back, you will see how it was necessary. You are now in the biting waters, my child. By the times tomorrow, you will, please God, have passed them and have drunk of the sweet waters. So do not mourn overmuch. Till then I shall not ask you to forgive me. Mhm. I like that they have a little audience in Minecraft too. They're like, oof. Okay, let's see here. Arthur and Quincy came home with me, and we tried to cheer each other on the way. We had left behind the child in safety, and we are tired, so we all slept with more or less reality of sleep. September 29th. A little before 12 o'clock, we three, Arthur, Quincy Morris, and myself, called for the professor. It was odd to notice that by common consent we had all put on black clothes, of course. Arthur wore black, for he was in deep mourning, but the rest of us wore it by instinct. We got to the graveyard by 1:30 and strolled about, keeping out of official observation, so that when the grave diggers had completed their task, and the sexton, under the belief that everyone had gone, had locked the gate, we had the place to ourselves. Van Helsing, instead of his little black bag, had with him a long leather one, something like a cricketing bag. It was manifestly of a fair weight. Oops. When we were alone and had heard the last of the footsteps die up the road, we silently, as if by ordered intention, followed the professor to the tomb. He unlocked the door and we entered, closing it behind us. Then he took from his bag the lantern, which he lit, and also 2 wax candles, which, when lit, he struck by melting their own ends to the coffin, so that they might give light sufficient to the work by. When he again lifted the lid of Lucy's coffin, we all looked. Arthur trembled in a aspen and saw that the corpse lay there all in all its dead beauty. But there was no love in my own heart, nothing but loathing for the foul thing which had been taking Lucy's shape without her soul. I could see even Arthur's face grow hard as he looked. Presently he said to Van Helsing, "Is this really Lucy's body, or only a demon in her shape?" "It is her body, and yet not it. But await a while, and you shall see her." Oops, sorry. "And you shall see her as she was and is. She seemed like a nightmare of Lucy as she lay there, the pointed teeth, the blood-stained, the voluptuous mouth, which made one shudder to see, the whole carnal and unspirited appearance seemed like a devilish mockery of Lucy's sweet purity. Van Helsing, with his unusual methodialness, began taking the various contents from his bag and placed them ready to use. First, he took out the soldering iron, and some plummeting solder, and a small oil lamp which gave out. When lit in the corner of the tomb, gas which burned at the fierce heat with a blue flame, then his operating knives which he had placed to hand, and last a round wooden stake, some 2.5 or 3 inches thick and about 3 feet long. One end of it was hardened by sharding in the fire and was sharp to a fine point. Which, with this stake came a heavy hammer, such as in households it used in the cold cellar for breaking the lumps. To me, a doctor's preparation of work of any kind are stimulating and embracing, but the effect of these things are both Arthur and Quincy was to cause them a sort of consternation. They both, however, kept their courage and remained silent and quiet. When all was ready, Van Helsing said, "Before we do this, let me tell you this. It is out of the lore and experience of the ancients, and of all those who have studied the powers of the undead. When they become such, there comes with the chance of the curse of immortality. They cannot die, but must go on age after age, adding new victims and multiplying the evil of the world. For all that die from the preying of the undead become themselves undead and prey on their kind. And so the circle goes on ever widening, like as the ripple from a stone thrown in the water. Friend August, not August, oh my god, Arthur, if you had if you had met the kiss with your now before poor Lucy died, or again last night when you opened your arms to her, you would in time, when you had died, have become Nosferatu, or as they call it in the Eastern Europe, and would for all time make more of those undead that so have filled us with horror. The career of this so unhappy dear Lucy is but just begun. Those children whose blood she sucked are not as yet so much the worse. But if she lives on, undead more and more, they lose their blood, and by her power over them they come to her, and so she draw their blood with that so wicked mouth. But if she dies in truth, then all cease, the tiny wound on their throats disappear, and they go back to their play, unknowing ever of what has been. But of the most blessed of all, when this now undead been made to rest as a true dead, then the soul of the poor lady who we all loved shall again be free. Instead of working wickedness by night and growing more abased in the assimilation of it by day, she shall take her place with the other angels, so that, my friend, it will be a blessed hand for her that shall strike the blow that sets her free. So this I am willing, but is there none among us who are better right? Will it be no joy to think of her after in the silence of the night when sleep is not? It was my hand that sent her to the stars. It was the hand of him she loved her best. The hand that of all she would herself have chosen, had it been to her to choose. Tell me if there been such one among us. We all looked at Arthur. He saw too what we all did, the infinity kindness which suggested that he should be the hand which would restore Lucy to us as a holy and not an unholy memory. He stepped forward and said bravely, though his hand trembled and his face was as pale as snow, "My true friend, from the bottom of my broken heart I thank you. Tell me what I shall do, and I shall not falter." Van Helsing laid a hand on his shoulder and said, "Brave lad, a moment's courage, and it is done. This stake must be driven through her. It will be a fearful ordeal, and not deceived in that, but it will be only a short time, and you will be rejoice more than your pain was great. For this grim tomb you will emerge as though you had tread on air. But you must not falter when once you have begun. Only think that we, your true friends, are around you, and that we pray for you all the time." "Go on," said Arthur hoarsely. "Tell me what I am to do." "Take this stake in your left hand, ready to place to the point over the heart, and hammer it in your right. Then, when we begin our prayer for the dead, I shall read him I have here the book, and the others shall follow. Strike in God's name, and so all may be well with the dead, and that we love, and that the undead pass away." Arthur took the stake and the hammer, and when once his mind was set on action, his hand never trembled nor even quivered. Van Helsing opened his missile and began to read, and Quincy and I followed as well as we could. Arthur placed the point over the heart, and as I looked, I could see its dint in the white flesh. Then he struck with all his might. Let's see here. The thing in the coffin withered, and a hideous blood-curdling screech came from the open red lips. The body shook and shivered and twisted in wild contortions. The sharp white teeth champed together till the lips were cut, and the mouth was smeared with a crimson foam. But Arthur never faltered. He looked like a figure of Thor, as his untrembling arm rose and fell, driving deeper and deeper the mercy-bearing stake, whilst the blood from the pierced heart welled and spewed up around it. His face was set, and high duty seemed to shine through it. The sight of it gave us courage, so that our voices seemed to ring through the little vault, and then the wrenching and quivering of the body became less, and the teeth seemed to chafe, and the face to quiver. Finally, it lay still. The terrible task was over. The hammer fell from Arthur's hand. He reeled and would have fallen had we not caught him. The drops of sweat sprang from his forehead, and his breath came in broken gasps. It had indeed been an awful strain on him, and had he not been forced to his task by more than human human consideration, he could never have gone through with it. For a few minutes we were taken up with him, for we did not look towards the coffin. When we did, however, a murmur of startled surprise ran from one of the others to us. We gazed so eagerly that Arthur rose, for he had for he had been seated on the ground. He came and looked too, and then a glad, strange light broke over his face and dispelled altogether the gloom a horror laid upon it. There, in the coffin, lay no longer the foul thing that we had so dreaded and grown to hate, that the work of her destruction was yielded as a privilege to one of the best entitled to it. But Lucy, as we had seen her in life, with a face of unequivalent sweetness and purity, true, there, true that there were there. We had seen them in life, the traces of care and pain and waste, but they were all there to us, for they marked her true to what we knew. One and all we felt that the holy calm and lay like sunshine over the wasted face and form was only a earthly token and a symbol of the calm that was reigned forever. Van Helsing came and laid his hand on Arthur's shoulder and said to him, "And now, Arthur, my friend, dear lad, I am not forgiven. Am I not forgiven?" The reaction of terrible strain came as he took the old man's hand in his and raised it to his lips, pressing it, and said, "Forgiven. God bless you that you have given my dear ones her soul again, and me peace." He put his hand on the professor's shoulder and laid his head on his breast and cried for a while silently, while we stood unmoving. "But are you loafing on the cardboard box?" I'm looking down and see my little tiny cat loafing on the cardboard box. That's adorable. When he raised his head, Van Helsing said to him, "And now, my child, you may kiss her." Ugh. I'm sorry, if I were in that situation, I could not kiss a corpse. Ugh. Nah, I don't know how. Yeah, a corpse that's been dead for a week. Nah. Kiss her dead lips if you will, as she would have you to, if for her to choose. For her is not a grinning devil now, as any more a foul thing. Thinks for all eternity. No longer she is the devil's undead. She is God's true dead, whose soul is with him. Barf! I'm sorry, but I'm not really into this little part of the story. Ugh. But I shall read it anyway. Arthur bent down and kissed her, and then we sent him and Quincy out of the tomb. The professor and I sawed the top of the stake, leaving the point of it in the body. Then we cut off the head and filled the mouth with garlic. We soldered up the leaded coffin, screwing on the coffin lid, gathered up our belongings, and came away. When the professor locked the door, he gave the key to Arthur. Outside the air was sweet. The sun shone and the birds sang, and it seemed as if all nature were turned to a different pitch. There were gladness and mirth and peace everywhere, for we were at rest ourselves at one account. And we were glad, though it was a tempered joy. Before we moved away, Van Helsing said, Pardon? Now, my friends, one step of our work is done, one of the most harrowing to ourselves. But there remains a greater task to find out the author of all this our sorrow and to stamp him out. I have clues of which we can follow, but it is a long task and a difficult one, and there is danger in it and pain. Shall you not all help me? We have learned to believe, all of us. Is it not so? And since so, do we not see our duty, yes? And do we not promise to go on to the bitter end? Each in turn we took his hand and the promise was made. Then said the professor as we moved off, 2 nights hence you shall meet with me and dine together at 7 of the clock with friend John. I shall entreat 2 others, 2 that you know not as yet, and I shall be ready to all our work show and our plans unfold. Friend John, you come with me home, for I shall have much to consult you about. And you can help me. Tonight I leave for Amsterdam, but shall return tomorrow night, and then begins our great quest. For first I shall have much to say, so that you may know what to do and to dread. Then our promise shall be made to each other and another anew, for there is a terrible task before us, and once our feet are on the plowshare we must not draw back. Nice. Chapter 17. Dr. Seward's diary. Continue. Oh goodness, I was about to sneeze. Oh, dear Lord. Ah, goodness. Okay. When we arrived at Berkeley Hotel, Van Helsing found a telegram waiting for him. I am coming by train, Jonathan at Whitby. Important news. Mina Hawker. The professor was delighted. Ah, that wonderful Madame Mina, he said. Pearl among women, she will arrive. But I cannot stay. She must go to your house, friend John. You must meet her at the station. Telegraph her our route so that she may be prepared. When the wire was dispatched, he had a cup of tea. Over it he told me of a diary kept by Jonathan Harker when abroad, and gave me a typewriter copy of it, as also of Mrs. Hawker's diary at Whitby. Take these, he said, and study them well. When I have returned, you will be master of the facts. and we can then better enter your inquisition. Keep them safe, for there is in them much of treasure. You will need all your faith, even you who had such experience as of today. What is here told? He laid his hand heavily and gravely on the packet of papers as he spoke. May be the beginning of the end to you and me and many others, or it may sound to the canal of the undead who walks the earth. Read all, I pray you, with the open mind, and if you can add in any way to the story here told, do so, for it is all important. You have kept a diary for all these so strange things, is it not so? Yes, then we shall go through all these together as we meet. And he made ready for his departure and shortly drove off to Liverpool Street. I took my way to Paddington, where I had arrived about 15 minutes before the train came in. The crowd melted away after the bustling fashion common to arrival platforms, and I was beginning to feel uneasy. Lisa might miss my guest, when a sweet-faced, dainty-looking girl stepped up to me, and after a quick glance around said, "Dr. Seward, is it not? And you are Mr. Hawkins?" I answered at once, whereupon she held out her hand. "I knew you from the description of poor dear Lucy, but—" She stopped suddenly, and a quick blush overspread her face. The blush that rose from my own cheeks somehow set us both at ease, for it was in a tacit answer to her own. I got her luggage, which included a typewriter, and we took the underground to Church Street. After I had sent a wire to my housekeeper to have a sitting room and a bedroom prepared at once for Mrs. Hawkers. In due time we arrived. She knew, of course, that the place was a lunatic asylum, but I could see that she was unable to repress a shudder when we entered. She told me that, if she might, she would come presently to my study, as she had much to say. So I finished my entry in my phonograph diary, whilst I await her. As yet I have not had a chance of looking at the papers which Van Helsing left with me. Although they lie open before me, I must get her interested in something, so that I may have the opportunity of reading them. She does not know how precious time is, or what a task we might have in hand. I must be careful not to frighten her. Here she is. Mina Hawkes' Journal, September 29th. After I had tired myself, I went down to Dr. Seward's study. At the door, I paused a moment, for I thought I heard him talking with someone. As, however, he had pressed me to be quick, I knocked at the door, and he called out, "Come in." I entered. To my intense surprise, there were no one with him. He was quite alone. On the table opposite him was what I knew at once from the description to be a phonograph. I had never once seen one. I was much interested. "I hope I did not keep you waiting," I said, "but I stayed at the door as I heard you talking and thought There was someone with you. Oh, he replied with a smile. I was only entering my diary. Your diary? I asked him in surprise. I just realized something that's very interesting with this story is that everybody's keeping a diary. And everybody's so good at it and very good at describing their details. But maybe that was a common thing back then. Because sending letters and talking through letters was very common back then. That was one of the main forms of communication, after all. Yes, he answered. I keep it in this, he said, spoke as he laid his hand on the phonograph. I felt quite excited over it, and blurred out, why, this beats even a shorthand. May I, may I hear it say something? Certainly, he replied with alacrity, and stood up and put in it trains of speaking. Then he paused, and a troubled look overspread his face. The fact is, he began awkwardly, I only keep my diary in it as it is entirely, almost entirely about my cases. It may be awkward that it is, I mean, he stopped, and I tried to help him out in his embarrassment. You helped to attend dear Lucy at the end. Let me hear how she died. For all that I know of her, I shall be very grateful. She was very, very dear to me. To my surprise, he answered, with a horror-struck look on his face. Tell you of her death? Not for the wild world. Why not? I asked, for a grave, terrible feeling had come over me. Again he paused, and I could see that he was trying to invent an excuse. At length he stammered out, You see, I do not know how to pick out any particular part of the diary. Even while he was speaking, an idea dawned upon him, and he said, with unconscious simplicity, in a different voice, and with a naivety of a child, It's quite true, upon my honor. Honest Indian. What? I could not but smile, at which he grimaced. I gave myself away that time, he said. But do you know that although I have kept the diary for months past, it never once struck me how I was going to find any particular part of it in case I wanted to look it up. By this time my mind was made up that the diary of a doctor who attended Lucy might have something to add to the sum of our knowledge of the terrible being. And I said boldly, Then, Dr. Seward, you had better let me copy it out of you for you on my typewriting. He grew a positively deadly pallor as he said, No, no, no. For all the world, I wouldn't let you know the terrible story. Then it was terrible. My intuition was right. For a moment I thought, and as my eyes rang the room, unconsciously looking for something or some opportunity to aid me, they lit on the great batch of typewriting on the table. His eyes caught the look in mine, and without his thinking, followed their direction. As he saw the partial, he realized my meaning. You do not know me, I said. When you have read those papers, my own diary and my husband's also, which I have typed, you will know me better. I have not faltered in giving every thought of my own heart in this case. But, of course, you do not know me yet, and I must not expect you to trust me so far. He is certainly a man of noble nature. Poor dear Lucy was right about him. He stood up and opened a large drawer, in which were arranged in order a number of hollow cylinders of metal covers with dark wax, and said, "You're quite right. I did not trust you because I did not know you. But I know you now, and let me say that I should have known you long ago. I know that Lucy told me of you. She told me of you too. May I make the only atonement in my power? Take the cylinder and hear it. The first half dozen of them are personal to me, and they will not horrify you. Then you will know me better. Dinner will by then be ready. In the meantime, I shall read you some of the documents and shall be better at understanding certain things." He carried the phonograph himself up to my sitting room and adjusted it for me. Now I shall learn something pleasant, I'm sure. It will be For it will tell me the other side of a true love episode of which I know one side already. Dr. Stewart's diary, September 29th. I was so absorbed in the wonderful diary of Jonathan Hawker and the other of his wife. It's itchy. Of his wife that I let the time run on without thinking. Mrs. Hawker was not down when the maid came to announce dinner, so I said, "She's possibly tired. Let dinner wait an hour," and I went on with my work, and I had just finished Mrs. Hawker's diary when she came in. She looked sweetly pretty, but very sad, and her eyes were flushed with crying. This somehow moved me much. Of late I have had cause for tears, God knows, but the relief of them was denied me, and now the sight of those sweet eyes brimmed by recent tears went straight to my heart, so I said gently as I could, "I greatly fear that I have distressed you." "Oh no, not distressed me," she replied, "but I have been more touched than I can say by your grief. That is a wonderful machine, but it is cruelly true. It told me in its very tone the anguish of your heart. It was like a soul crying out to Almighty God. No one must hear them spoken ever again. See, I have tried to be useful, had copied out the words on my typewriter, and none other need to hear the word of your heart beat as I did. No one need ever know, shall ever know," I said in a low voice. She laid her hand on mine and said very gravely, "Ah, but they must. Must, but why, I ask?" "Because it's part of the terrible story, a part of poor Lucy's death and all that led to it." "Because in the struggle which we have before us to rid the earth of this terrible monster, we must have all the knowledge and all the help which we can get. I think that the cylinders which you gave me contained more than you intended to me know. But I can see that there are in your record many lights to this dark mystery. You will let me help you, will you not?" I know all to a certain point that I can see already through your diary only took me to 7 September 7th. How poor Lucy was beset, and how her terrible doom was being wronged out. Jonathan and I had been working day and night since Professor Van Helsing saw us. He is gone to Whitby to get more information, and he will be here tomorrow to help us. We need have no secrets among us. Working together and with absolute trust, we can surely be stronger than if some of us were in the dark. Cat. Thank you, mate. She looked at me so. Let's see here. She looked at me so appealingly, and at the same time manifested such courage and resolution in her bearing that I gave in at once to her wishes. You shall, I said. Do as you like in the matter. God forgive me if I do wrong. There are terrible things yet to learn of, but if you have so far travelled on the road to poor Lucy's death, you will not be content, I know, to remain in the dark. Nay, the end, the very end, may give you a gleam of peace. Come, there is dinner. We must keep one another strong for what is before us. We have a cruel and dreadful task. When you have eaten, you shall learn to rest, and I shall answer any question you ask, if there be anything which you do not understand, though it was appeared to us who were present. Mina Hawker's Journal, September 29th. After dinner I came with Dr. Seward to his study. He brought back the phonograph from our room, and I took a chair and arranged the phonograph so that I could touch it without getting up, and he showed me how to stop it in case I should want to pause. When he very thoughtfully took a chair with his back to me, so that I might be as free as possible, and began to read. I put the forked metal to my ear and listened. When the terrible story of Lucy's death and all that followed was done, I lay back in my chair powerless. For fortunately, I am not of fainting disposition. When Dr. Seward saw me, he jumped up with a horrified explanation, and hurriedly taking a case of bottle from the cupboard, and gave me some brandy, which in a few minutes somewhat restored me. My brain was all a whirl, and only that there came through all the multitude of horrors and holy ray of light that my dear Lucy was at last at peace. I do not think I could have borne it without making a scene. It is all so wild and mysterious and strange that if I had not known Jonathan's experience in Transylvania, I could not have believed. As in as it was, I did not know what to believe, and so go out of my difficulty by attending to something else. I took the cover of my typewriter and said, Dr. Seward, let me write this all out now. We must be ready for Dr. Van Helsing when he comes. I have sent a telegram to Jonathan to come on here when he arrives in London from Whitby. In this matter, dates are everything, and I think that if we all, and if we get all of our materials ready, and have every item put in a chronological order, we shall have done much. You tell me that Lord Godalming and Mr. Morris are coming. Let us be able to tell them when they come. He accordingly set the phonographic at a slow pace, and I began to typewrite from the beginning of the seventh cylinder. I used manifolds, and so took 3 copies of the diary, just as I had done with the rest. It was late when I got through, but Dr. Seward went about his work of going his round to the patients. When he had finished, he came back and sat near me, reading, so that I did not feel too lonely whilst I worked. Cat, did you just disconnect? Right there. Okay. Let's see here. How good and thoughtful is he? The world seemed full of good men, even if there are monsters in it. Before I left him, I remembered what Jonathan put in his diary of the professor's perturbation at reading something in an evening paper at the station of Extern. So seeing that Dr. Seward keeps his newspapers, I borrowed the files of the Westminster Gesten and the Pall Mall Gastel, and took them to my room. I remember how much the Daily Graph and the Whitby case, of which I had made cuttings, and helped us to understand the terrible events at Whitby when Count Dracula landed. So I shall look through the evening papers since then, and perhaps I shall see some new light. I am not sleepy, and the work will help keep me quiet. Dr. Seward's diary. Meow. September 30th. Mr. Hawker arrived at 9 o'clock. He got his wife's fire just before starting. He is uncommonly clever, if one can judge from his face, and full of energy. If this genre be true, the judging by one's own wonderful experience, it must be that he is also a man of great nerve. That going down to the vault for a second time was remarkably a piece of daring. After reading his accounts of it, it was prepared to meet a good specimen of manhood, but hardly the quiet, businesslike gentleman who came here today. Later, after lunch, Hawke and his wife went back to their own room, and as I passed a while ago, I hear the click of the typewriter. They are hard at it. Mr. Hawker says uh, that they are knitting together in chronological order every scrap of evidence they have. Hawker has gotten the letters between the co-signed of the boxes of Whitby and the carriers in London who took charge of them. He is now reading his wife's transcripts of my diary. I wonder what they'll make out of it. Here it is. It's strange that it's never struck me that the very next house might be the Count's hiding place. Goodness, knows that we had enough clues from the conduct of this patient Rainfield. The bundle of letters relating to the purchase of the house were in the transcripts. Oh, if we had only had them earlier, we might have saved poor Lucy. Stop. The way madness lies. Harker has gone back and is again collecting materials. He says that by dinner time they will be able to show a whole connected narrative. He thinks that in the meantime I should see Rainfield as hitherto as he might be a sort of index to the coming and going of the Count. I hardly see this yet, but when I get at the dates, I suppose I shall. What a good thing that Mrs. Hawker has put my cylinders into type. We never could have found the dates otherwise. I found Rainfield sitting placidly in his room with his arms folded, smiling benignly. At the moment he seemed as sane as any one I've ever saw. I sat down and talked with him on a lot of subjects, all of which he treated naturally. He then, of his own accord, spoke of going home, a subject he has never mentioned, to my knowledge, during his sojourn here. In fact, he spoke quite confidently of getting his discharge at once. I believe that had I not had the chat with the Hawkers and read the letters that the date of his outburst, I should have been prepared to sign for him after a brief time of observation. As it is, I am darkly suspicious. All those outbreaks were in some way linked with the proximity of the Count. What then does this absolute content mean? Can it be that his instinct is satisfied as to the vampire's ultimate triumph? Stay. He is himself a Sophangus, and his wild ravaging outside the chapel door of the deserted house he always spoke of master. This is all seems confirmation of our idea. However, after a while, I came away. My friend is just a little bit too sane at the present to make it safe to probe him too deep with questions. He might begin to think, and then, so I came away. I mistrust these quiet moods of his. So I have given the attendant a hint to look closely after him and to have a strain waistcoat ready in case of need. Jonathan Hawker's journal. Goodness. September 29th. In train to London, when I received Mr. Billington's courteous message that he would give me any information in his power, I thought it's best to go down to Whitby and make, on the spot, such inquiries as wanted. It was now my object to trace the horrid cargo of the Count to its place in London. Lately we have been able to deal with it. Bringington Jr., as a nice lad, met me at the station and brought me into his father's house, where they had decided that I must spend the night. They are hospitable, with a true Yorkshire hospitality, giving a guest everything and leave him to do as he likes. They all knew that I was busy and that my stay was short, and Mr. Billington had already in his office all the papers concerning the consignment of the boxes, It gave me almost a turn to see again on one of the letters which had been seen on the Count's table before. I knew of his diabolical plans. Everything had been carefully thought out and done systematically and with precision. He seemed to have been prepared for every obstacle which might have been placed by accident in a way of his intentions being carried out. To use an Americanism, he he had taken no chances and were absolutely the absolute accuracy with which his instructions were fulfilled was simply the logical result of his care. I saw the invoice and took note of it. 50 cases of common earth and their use for experimental purposes. Also, the copy of the letter to Carter Peterson and the reply. Both seem these uh, of uh, of both these I got copies. This was all the information Mr. Billington could give me, so I went down to the port and saw the Coast Guard and the customer officers and the harbor master, who kindly put me in communication with the men who had actually received the boxes. They were told it was exactly with the list, and they had add uh, nothing to add to the simple description of 50 cases of common earth, except that the boxes were mean and morally heavy, and that shifting them was dry work. Some of them added that it was hard line, and it wasn't any gentleman such like yourself, Square, to show some of their appreciation of their efforts in a liquid form. Although to put in a rider that the thirst then generated was such that even the time which had elapsed had not completely allowed it. Needless to add, I took care before leaving to lift forever and adductly this source of approach. Interesting. And that was a lot of words. September 30th. The station master was good enough to give me a line to his old companion, the station master at King's Crossing, so that when I arrived there in the morning I was able to ask him about the arrival of the boxes. He too put me at once in communication with the proper officials, and I saw that their tally was correct with the original invoice. The opportunities of acquiring an abnormal thirst had been there limited. A noble use of them had, however, been made, and again I was compelled to deal with the resulting ex post facto manners. Hence, I went to Carter Pearson's central office, and I went with the utmost courtesy. I looked up the transition in their daybook and letter book, and at once telephoned to their King Cross offices for more details. By the good fortune, the men who did the teaming were waiting for work, and the officer at once sent them over, sending also by one of them the way bill and all the paper connecting with the delivery of the boxes at Carfax. Here again, I found it totally agreeing exactly. The carrier men were able to supplement the paucity of the written words with a few more details. These were, I shortly found, connected almost solely with the dusty nature of the job. Dusty. Mm. And the consequence thirst and generated in the operation on my affording an opportunity through the media of the currency of the realm, of the allaying at a later period. This beneficial evil, one of the men remarked. I know, it's older English. And that here house governor is the rummiest I've ever was in. Beleg me, but it ain't been touched since 100 years. There was dust that thick in the place that you might have slept on it without hurting of your bones. And the place was that neglected that here might have smelled old Jerusalem in it. But the old chapel that took the crikes that did, me and my mate, we though we wouldn't ever get out quick enough. Lord, I wouldn't take less nor a quid a moment to stay there at dark. Having been in the house, I could well believe him, but if he knew that I knew, he would, I think, have raised his terms. Of one thing, I am now satisfied that all the boxes which arrived at the Whitby from Varna in the meet oh my god the meter were safely depositioned in the old chapel at the Carfax. There should be 50 of them there, unless any of them any have since been removed. As for Dr. Seward's diary, I fear. Later, Mina and I worked all day and we had put all the papers in order. Goodness. Mina Harker's journal, September 30th. I'm so glad that I hardly know how to contain myself. It is, I suppose, the reaction from the haunted fear which I had. That this terrible affair and the reopening of his old wound might act determinantly on Jonathan. I saw him leave for Whitby with a brave face and a face as I could, but I was sick with apprehension. The effort has, however, done him good. He was never so resolution, never so strong, never so full of volcanic energy as at present. It is just as the dear good Professor Van Helsing said, he is a true grit, and he improved under strain that would kill a weak nature. He came back full of life and hope and determination. We had got everything in order for tonight. I felt myself quite wild with excitement. I suppose one ought to pity anything so hunted as the Count. That is just it. This thing is not human, not even a beast. To read Dr. Seward's accounts of poor Lucy's death and what followed is enough to dry up the springs of pity in one's heart. Look at that. She is on for vengeance to avenge her poor bestie, you know, because they clearly were best of friends. Oops. Because I do believe, I don't know if the women used best friends in this term, but yeah. Okay, let's see here. Later, Lord Godalming and Mr. Morris arrived earlier than we expected. Dr. Seward was out of business and had taken Jonathan with him, so I had to see them. It was to me a painful meeting, for it brought back all poor dear. Oh, sorry, one sec. Goodness gracious. Sorry, I had a burp stuck in me. For it brought back all poor dear Lucy's hopes of only a few months ago. Of course, they had heard Lucy speak of me. It seemed like Dr. Van Helsing, too, had been quite blowing my trumpet, as Mr. Morris expressed it. Poor fellas, neither of them is aware that I know all about the proposals they made to Lucy. They did not quite know what to say or do, as they were all ignorant of the amount of my knowledge. So they had to keep the neutral subjects. However, I thought the matter over and came to the conclusions that the best thing I could do would be to post them on affairs right up to date. I knew from Dr. Seward's diary that they had been at Lucy's death, her real death, and that I need not fear to betray any secrets before the time. So I told them as well as I could that I had read all papers and diaries, and that my husband and I, having typewriting them, had just finished putting them in order, and gave them each a copy to read in the library when Lord Godalming got his and turned it over. It does make a pretty good pile, he said. Did you write all this, Mr. Hawker? I nodded, and he went on. I don't quite see the drift of it, but you people are all so good and kind, and have been working so earnestly and so energetically, and all I can do is to accept your ideas blindly and try to help you. I have had one lesson already in accepting facts that could make a man humble to the last hour of his life. Besides, I know you loved my Lucy. Here he turned away and covered his face with his hand. I could hear the tears in his voice. Mr. Morris, with instinctive delicacy, just laid a hand for a movement on his shoulder, and then walked quietly out of the room. Oops. Ouch! God darn it. I suppose there is something in a woman's nature that makes a man feel free to break down before her and express his feelings on the tender or emotional side, where feeling it's the derogatory to his manhood. See, even the 19th century agree that you could like if you're in a female's presence and you feel safe around them, it's okay to express your grief and emotions and everything, and it's not like you're not less manly for it. I totally agree with that. Besides, then you get an excuse to head pat them on the head, you know. You know. But I agree on that part. I don't care what society say, like, a man can't show emotions. And I'm like, I'm gonna drop kick the society and be like, well, not in my society, you don't show your feelings. Obviously, it's a time and a place to show feelings, but yeah. Let's see here. For when Lord Godalming found himself alone with me, he sat down on the sofa and gave away utterly and openly. I sat down beside him and took his hand. I hope he didn't think it was forward of me, and that if he ever thinks of it afterwards, he never will have such a thought. There, there, there I wrong him, and no, he never will. He is too true a gentleman. I said to him, for I could see that his heart was breaking, I loved dear Lucy, and I know what she was to you, and what you were to her. She and I were like sisters, and now she is gone. Will you not let me be like a sister to you in your troubles, and know what sorrow you have had, though I cannot measure the depths of them? If sympathy and pity can help in your affliction, won't you let me be of some little service for Lucy's sake? In an instant the poor dear fellow was overwhelmed with grief. It seemed to me that all that he had of late been suffering in silence found a vent at once. He grew quite hysterical and raised his open hands, beat his palm together in a perfect agony of grief. He stood up and sat down again, and the tears ran down his cheek. I felt an infinite pity for him and opened my arms unthinkably. With a sob, he laid his head on my shoulder and cried like a wearied child, whilst he shook with emotions. Damn. I can actually see that in my mind. That is very emotional. Poor guy, he must have been suffering for a long time. The power of words. We women have something of the mother in us that makes us rise above smaller matters when the mother spirit is awoken. I feel this big sorrowing man's head resting on me, as though it were that of a baby that some day may lie on my bosom. I stroke his hair as though he were my own child. I never thought at the time how strange it was. After a little bit, his sobs eased, and he raised himself with an apology, though he made no disguise of his emotions. He told me that of day and night past, weary days and sleepless nights, he had been unable to speak with any one as a man must speak in his time of sorrow. There was no woman whose sympathy could be given to him, or with whom, owning to the terrible circumstances with which his sorrow was surrounded, he could speak freely. Oh, I know now how I suffered, he said, and he dried his tears. But I do not know even yet, and none other can ever know, how much your sweet sympathy has been to me today. I shall know better in time, and believe me that, though I am not ungrateful now, my gratitude will grow with my understanding. You will let me be like a brother, will you not? For all our lives, for dear Lucy's sake. For dear Lucy's sake, I said, as we clasped hands. Aye, and for your own sake, he added, for if a man's esteem and gratitude are even worth the winning, you have won mine today. If ever the future should bring to you time when you need a man's help, believe me, I will not call in vain. You will not call in vain. God grant that no such time may ever come to you to break the sunshine of your life. But if it should ever come, promise me that you will let me know. He was so earnest, and his sorrow was fresh, that I felt it would comfort him, so I said, I promise. As I came along the corridor, I saw Mr. Morris looking at the window. He turned as he heard my footstep. How is Art? He said, then noticed my red eyes, and he went on. Ah, I see you have been comforting him. Poor old fella. He needs it. No one but a woman can help a man when he is in trouble of heart. And he had no one to comfort him. He bore his own trouble so bravely that my heart bled for him. I saw the manuscript in his hand, and I knew that when he read it, he would realize how much I knew. So I said to him, I wish I could comfort all who suffer from the heart. Will you let me be your friend? And now I will, and will you come to me for comfort if you need it? You will know later why I speak. He saw that I was in earnest, and stooping, took my hand and raised it to his lips, kissed it. It seemed but poor comfort to so brave and unselfish a soul, and impulsively I bent over and kissed him. Tears rose in his eyes, and there was a momentary choking in his throat. He said, quite calmly, little girl, you will never forget the true hearted kindness, so long as ever you live. Then he went into the study to his friend. Little girl, the very word he had used to Lucy, and oh, but he proved himself a friend. I swear to God, well, not really, but if like a guy had, for example, kissed her in today's age, he would have been whacked. If it, like, the way they're acting in this story, the girls would have beaten them up today. Like, how dare you kiss me? I will sue you. If it were America, Oh, welcome time. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Guys, we're already at chapter 18. Hell yeah. I didn't realize I did read faster today. Hell yeah. Normally I just literally finish on the dot. Because I am not gonna continue with another chapter because I realize my throat don't really want to read more today. I can feel it in my throat. But I can proudly say to myself that it felt way more fluent reading today. And I'm really happy about that. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this little reading session, and hopefully next week we shall have less interruption in me babbling. But no, I'm quite satisfied how I read today. more fluently, less stumbling. So yeah, very nice. Let's see, I just have to write down so I don't forget. Oh, this is certainly gonna be interesting. But yeah, it's certainly be like quite a chapter. Well, 2 chapters. Oh, technically been 4. Wait, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 4 chapters for each uh yeah, every Friday. So reading 4 chapters, not that bad. So next it is 18, 19, 20, and 21. Wait a minute. 21. Oh my gosh. I think honestly that next week is gonna be the last chapter, because I think it was only 21 chapters and we are already on 18th, because it says page 218 out of 353. Huh. Yeah, so we might be able to finish. Then I need to think about another book to read. But yeah, very interesting. But anyhow, my dear hatchlings, I really hope you guys enjoyed it, and for everybody that listened to it later, thank you so much for listening. And I hope you guys have a lovely weekend. Try not to drink too much. For people that drink, I, on the other hand, can't really drink. It's too expensive. But yeah. And thank you everybody for coming. I really love it when my hatchlings come and listen to it. So yeah. And some of the books I might look into is H.P. Lovecraft. But I have a feeling that will traumatize me a little bit, because that's like unearthly horror. This is just like mild compared to H.P. Lovecraft. But we shall see. I know there are some big fans out there with H.P. Lovecraft. And I probably have to research in if there are any orders I need to read them. But yeah. Oh, moving too fast. Oh yeah, also hello, Cozy Bear. No, I am planning on reading like Lovecraft, because I heard it's very good books, but the thing is, that's very comical. I'm very scared of horror, so we will see if we're gonna be able to handle it. I'm a big ass scaredy cat, so the most I might be able to do is actually only read horror stories. So yeah. But yeah, thank you for stopping by. You say that, but I have something that's called vivid imagination, meaning my imagination is so strong that I can clearly, as day, see like a clear picture with like sound, smell, everything basically. The demonic books like Necromic. Oh, is it something bad with that one? Ah, yes. Wait, he made a book like that? Oh, you meant there are. It's not Lovecraft that made those. It's like other book. Yeah, no, I keep away from demonic stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I try to like stay away from stuff like that. Otherwise, I don't might risk summoning some weird shit. Ugh, no, thank you. But you can still appreciate the good works of great authors of past times. I would read Lord of the Rings, but I'm quite pretty sure they are still copyrighted. But one of these days I am gonna read Iliad and Odyssey, if I can find the actual like full book. But I know that language is very long. Oh yeah, I had actually started reading Iliad and Odyssey, but then it's like I don't know what happened to those books. They just disappeared. I found like a really old copy in my language. I think it was like a very special copy. I found them in an antique store, but they disappeared. I don't know where they went. It's like someone just snatched them. And I live alone, so that's kind of interesting. But yeah. Oh yeah, no. It's not the first time things have just disappeared on me. It's either demons or it might be pixies or something other mischievous. I even had like a bracelet I bought once with like crystal stones, like real, like I think it was called a chakra bracelet with like the different stones. That and it was quite expensive, but that one it disappeared. The thing is, I had it on my desk. I heard it fall to the ground. You know, like a like stone hitting like wooden. When I looked under the desk, it was gone. It was completely gone, and I never found it again. And I'm like, where did it go? So it's quite mysterious. But it also feels like someone is low key teaching me to like don't have materialist value in things. And I'm like, I'm a dragon. I like shiny things. That bracelet was shiny stones. Nah, I would know if I live in a haunted house. It might be. This was before I made an agreement with Loki. If you know who Loki is. I don't think there are many people that don't know who he is. Yes. I'm a spiritual dragon after all. I feel things. I notice things. Besides, every time I cleansed my apartment, it is all me. Oh yeah. But anyhow, I shall get going. It was lovely chatting with you, Cassiopeia. You take care and have a lovely weekend. And the other lurker that lurking, nah, it's okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, but yeah, you take care. Bye bye.